One, two, 1, 2. There you go. Get some power there. Good. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we are past time to start, and so we apologize for the delay. But welcome to the Department of Inland Revenue town meeting, workshop. And I don't know the last time we had one here, but I guess it's a few years. And so we're delighted to put on this town meeting to educate and inform residents of Eleuthera of matters related to tax regulations and practices of the Bahamas government under the various legislation. I'm Philip Benaby. I'm the manager of the Eleuthera operations, and we're delighted to have you here today. As you may be aware, we are planning to have an official or soft opening of our central office in Governor's Harbor tomorrow at 3 p.m. And we'd like to see all of you there again. And our new administrator, we welcome you as well. And you already said you're going to be there, so we'll be delighted to have you there, and all of you residents. And so we want to start, and I imagine those who will come late will catch up. We have our staff at the back there. Can the staff please stand and at the office? Mr. Neely, Mr. Ingram, Ms. Wilson, and the corner there, Mr. Delancey. They are our staff. Missing is Ms. Kelly, who's taking care of our office in the north. And of course, we have two of our human resource directors there, head of human resource in Nassau, Ms. Simonet, and Ms. Austin. They came down. We are doing some interviews. We are trying to locate another 4 or 5 persons who will supplement our current staff and to be able to provide a proper service, full service line to the residents here. So without further ado, let's stand and have a prayer for opening. And so I ask our Deputy Director, Mr. Dexter Fernanda. He looks like a prayer warrior. And to ask God's blessing upon our deliberations today, that truly that we will benefit from what is shared on this occasion.
Let's look to Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time. Open our hearts and our minds for the information that will be distributed, that you will get the honor and glory, everything that is said and done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. And leading out in the discussion really is the prayer warrior, our deputy director, Mr. Dexter Fernanda. We're pleased that he came to be with us and to help us get through the workshops. And we pray for him as he leaves tomorrow back to Nassau, because the director is coming in for the opening So we pray that that all things go well with him, and we thank also the others, Mr. Davis and Brother Brennan, for coming to share with you on this occasion. Thank you, Mr.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having us. And we are so pleased to open the Eleuthera office. And as we progress with the satellite locations within Eleuthera, we know the importance of Eleuthera. And so it is important that as progress happens in Eleuthera, they are given that wonderful focus. So for this afternoon, we'll take about 10 or 5 minutes on each presentation. We will have a discussion on real property tax, business license, value-added tax, and then we will end the discussion with short-term rental and hotel condo tax. And just talks about what the department does, and then we will open up the floor for questions and answers and any concerns that may be of the topics that we would have discussed. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about, and then Mr. Benjamin Miller and then Mr. Steve Davis would talk on the areas. I'm talking about claiming the piece of the rock, identifying that which is related to real property tax. Now, as you know, there is a requirement that you should have an assessment number, Bahamian or non-Bahamian. If you have a piece of property, you should have at least an assessment number or understand that the property has been declared. So, if you've gotten an intervival gift, that's a gift whilst the person is alive, that should be recorded. If you have gotten something in probate after the person dies, deed of assent, that document should be recorded. And of course, if there is a sale, that conveyance should be recorded. Now, the real property tax is the oldest act in the Bahamas government's books. It's backdates to 1969. And you would see, I'm glad to see the administrators here, that when you do any work now on your property, you should be presenting to the local administrator evidence of your assessment number for your property and that the relevant taxes are paid. The good thing for Bahamians is that on Family Islands, there is no real property tax assessment fees for now. For now, the Act states there isn't any for the family. That is one of the incentives of getting Bahamian. Is plywood the same thing as sheetrock? Is sheetrock the same as brick? What about tile, porcelain tile compared to marble tile? And so when your mate finds a value and creates what they want as their dream house, you sit down and you consider what you want when you're making your house, because it's an investment. And that investment either drives up the price or that investment you make drives down your price. And so, yes, what your neighbor does impact your value in your zone. Because for real property tax, we look at the average, the highs and lows of in that area, and I know this is a long maths thing, any mathematician there. We look at the standard deviation, remove those, and then we have the mean, the average. And that is the price over a fixed 4 years that's given to your property. So if your neighbor is sitting there and placing as a mechanic and the oil is draining into the water table, what do you think the value in your area is? And with that mechanic comes rodents. What is the value in that area? Do people interest in purchasing in that area, or they don't want to be in that area? It's the same thing that happens with the price. So you might be doing the best at your house, and you would have driven up the price of your house. But whatever is happening in your neighborhood is important. Next slide. So there are three important things I want you to leave for today, not to bore you, that happens with the real property tax. When you purchase the property, or it is gifted to you, or it's given in probate, your grandmother and your great-grandmother will you this property, it's important to ensure that the lawyer or your legal representative gets that property stamped and registered. So I want you to go in your vaults when you go home, or your secret place of where you hide all your documents, and look at the back of it and make sure that there's a red stamp. That would be VAT stamp for us if it was done after 2015, or if there is a public treasury stamp from 1969 to current. And see if it was before 1973, it would be in pounds, or it will say in Bahamian dollars afterwards, that you either have a stamp that is saying that the VAT has been paid and that your document is registered. That's important because you do not own the property. And anyone can come and claim your property, and we see it so many times. Many people have the same will, but only one will is registered and stamped. And so we ask you, please, I beg you, for your own good, ensure that your document is declared and registered and stamped. And on the back page will tell you the volume number and the pages of your document. That's important. And doing this program right now, we realize that a lot of individuals have gotten their mortgage stamp. Mortgage stamp only clears the bank of their investment in you. You need to ensure that your conveyance is stamped and registered. Two different documents, mortgage and your conveyance is stamped. And the next thing is you need to look at the quality of the work of the lawyer that has submitted the documents on your behalf. He cannot tell me the property is in Rock Sound past the second Judo Tree on the right of Miss May and to the left of Susie. And when we go there, Miss May does not bound your property. Miss May is across the road, not even close by no Juju Tree. So you want to ensure that the conveyance, the schedule of the conveyance, the directions and the information is correct. And it matches up to what the appraiser, the surveyor would place is a diagram that indicates where your property is. So you should ensure that it's registered, stamped, and declared. So who pays? We went over this. In New Providence, we all pay. In the Family Island, the only person that pays is the non-Bahamian, according to the Act. And they pay on land and on improvement. We can go to the next slide. And we talked about this just now. What drives up the price of your property, or what drives down the price of your property in the area? Is it swamp land? Is there infrastructure in there? Would you say that, let me ask you a question, and then we'll see how good you know about real estate. I understand there is a constant electricity issue within this area. So you purchasing a generator, does that increase the value of your property or decrease the value of your property? What do y'all say? Increase. Why? More attractive. And there is certain codes that you should have when you place the generator there. You should have a cemented, fixed ground. And remember what I said at the beginning? Improvement is based on what is affixed to the soil. So you should have a certain distance away from your house, the generator and the base for the generator and the gas tank for the generator. And as you place that, you have improved the value of your property. So you're good. You're doing good. All right? And so construction, what is the value? Is it easy to get materials in Rock Sound? Is it easy to get materials in South Eleuthera? Is it easy to store materials when you need it there? Are we buying porcelain stuff for our roof, or are we buying basic shingles for our roof? I see this very interesting thing now. It's really a fad, but I'm not going to hurt the retail industry. Hurricane impact windows. Can you tell me why you want a hurricane impact window if your whole house is gone? Just to say, oh, the window lasts? What is the importance of a hurricane impacted window? Are you going to be standing by the window whilst the hurricane passes? So it's really a promotional item. Our old grandparents and great grandparents, all they did was a shutter that went across the window and just locked in. But we've become very fashionable, and so now hurricane impacted windows have caused your value to go up. So when the hurricane comes, yes, you have the windows, but no house. Can we go to the next slide? So the importance is to declare your property, and when you declare your property, it is all given assessment number. I think I've talked enough about the real property tax, so I'll talk about business license. So the business license acts as if you have an exchange of revenue, if there is any exchange of revenue at any given time, you should have a business license. If I'm keeping someone's child, if I am the maid, if I'm braiding someone here, if I am getting a service or a good in which there's an exchange of funds, you must have a business license. And the business license is free. The only catch for the family island is that you have to go into the local administrator because they are the ex officio representatives for the Ministry of Work and the physical planning so that you are approved where you are for the service that you offer. So up north, they told us about there is a medical field that comes periodically and you just get service from the non-Bahamian medical dentist. That dentist should be showing you an occasional license and that they did the surgery or the minor procedure for you. Was there money exchange? How is that money getting converted to leave the country? So as we are paying taxes, the person that is visiting needs to pay and be regulated and approved for the service. So there's a basic thing, and a business license is free. There is no cost for a business license. You can go online, register, and have the business within 72 hours. Once you have an idea of what your trade name is, what your business plan is, you submit the necessary documents and you receive a business license. And it's very easy. You go to our webpage, inlandrevenue.finance.gov.bs. There is at the back a lot of material that you can leave with that can tell you how to register. You log on to the page. You can do it from your home, from your wonderful smartphone. Take all the pictures of your passport and your NIB card, submit a case, and within 72 hours, with the help of our Eleuthera office that will open tomorrow, you would have your license within 72 hours. That's our goal, that you could have that special service on this island. And so that is the basics of the business license. We want everyone to be compliant. We do not want you to come to us when you find roach in the food or you got sick from someone from Thanksgiving meal. No, we want you to know beforehand that that person had a food handler permit. That person went through the necessary recording of how to prepare food and keep certain items at certain temperatures. And they're certified to give you the food or offer the service that you have given to them. All right? And I'll stop right there for allow the other individuals to present.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. That was a quite enlightening presentation there for most of us dealing with real property tax. And some of the issues I wasn't aware of, but he brought it to light to myself, so it was informative. But what I want to talk about is value-added tax. Value-added tax, unlike business real property tax, is a consumption tax. The consumption tax basically is paid or applied to all goods and services consumed in the Bahamas. So you must be careful, understand the main reason for value-added tax. It has to be consumed in the Bahamas. So anything that is consumed in the Bahamas is subject to VAT. What you need to know about value-added tax today, I want to go over several key areas, legislation that you need to be aware of. Section 19, which deals with the mandatory registrations, and also Section 21, the registration threshold, which most of you are aware of, is $100,000. Section 24, which deals with the unregistered person. The unregistered taxpayer is someone who has actually been providing services and goods who have not registered for VAT. And guess what happens? If you are providing that service and wasn't registered for VAT, the law states that you become liable for it. So if you collected $200,000 and never registered for VAT, the government will actually take VAT out of the $200,000 plus fine you. So it's very important that you register for VAT once you approach to $100,000 threshold. The other act you want to pay attention to is Section 47, which talks about the filing period. The filing period is the 21st of the month following the end of your tax period. So for those persons who tax period ended October 31st, the deadline would have passed on the 21st of November. The other term you need to be familiar with, which most of you may already been, is output tax and input tax. And generally, the VAT equation is output tax minus input tax equals what is due to the government. I want to stress a little bit more about Section 19, which is the mandatory registration, which talks about you having a $100,000 threshold. But there are some exceptions that happened in the last few years, which is very important. These amendments were to capture all of these particular areas, those providing communication services, meaning like Facebook and Google, etc. They're registered with the department. Believe it or not, if you advertise something on Marketplace and Facebook, they are going to charge you VAT. The other thing that's important is the persons who have temporary business license. Now, we talk about foreign persons coming into Bahamas. Either you have through Bahamas Investment Authority or whatever the case may be, you must apply for a temporary business license. If you have a temporary business license, you must also be registered for VAT. And also, which is important for you in Eleuthera, the vacation homes. Now, we have a lot of vacation home owners here, or what you will call second home owners, but they actually rent them out. And the department is actually tracking those rentals, either through Airbnb, which is also registered, and we're also tracking the website for all of these homes that are being advertised as being rental. Now, the thing about rentals is the non-Bahamian, regardless of the threshold, must be registered. So he can be renting a nice townhouse on, what's it, Bank Street or something? And what's it called? Banks Road. There's some nice homes on Banks Road, right? He could be renting those out. And let's say his revenue is only $50,000. He must register for that. That only applies to non-Bahamians. Now, a Bahamian can rent a house and not have to register for that, as long as he doesn't meet the threshold. Are we clear with that? So that's an important aspect you need to be aware of, and these amendments came about in the last 3 years or so. Another thing that came about that you're probably not aware of, what we call VAT withholding tax. A VAT withholding tax will capture all of those businesses or taxpayers who do business with government, who don't register, or who give erroneous information when they apply for their business license. You know, when you do your business license every year, we ask you what your turnover is. Some people say $5,000, $10,000. But guess what the department is doing now? We are tapping into all of the government agencies, particularly public treasury. And if you've done work for any of these ministries listed above, and they have to pay you $10,000, we will take out 40% of the VAT, automatic, whether you're VAT registering or not. Now, we've had instances where we've to a lot of taxpayers, and they complain, oh, well, I'm not registered for VAT. Well, what we do is we monitor you for 6 months to see if any other money is coming in. And we do find that is happening. And so there's a way that the government is actually increasing its due diligence and finding out information. So in terms of the Ministry of Works and Utilities, everybody's familiar with those type of services. Ministry of Education, a lot of like home repairs, that's gonna come up. The Ministry of Public Service. If you're renting to a government, if a government agency is renting from you as a taxpayer, that goes to public service. We also see that. Any payments going to public treasury, we also see. So you can declare on your business license you only made so much. We can see how much money was paid to you. Another thing I want to share with you is most of you have businesses now. There are different methods of reporting your VAT. Everyone is familiar with the accrual base and the cash-based accounting. The cash-based accounting is simply you pay the government what you receive. On the accrual base, you pay the government once you've issued the invoice to your client or customer, regardless of whether they paid you or not. But the benefit to that is that you can claim your inputs whether you paid for it or not. Okay? Now, the other item is the flat rate scheme. The flat rate scheme is for taxpayers who make less than $400,000 a year. That was designed for small businesses in the Family Islands where they don't keep much documentation. They are required to keep the output, sales, receipts, etc., but not the purchases. To qualify for this flat rate scheme, you must make less than $400,000 a year. And the flat rate scheme, I may add, is that you only pay the government 6.5% of the VAT inclusive sales. This is generally what the VAT return looks like for a standard rate return. We have 27 lines. Most of the lines you're not going to use, but the lines were set up to capture every business in the country. So line 1 deals with exports, line 2 would deal with exemptions, line 3 would deal with bonded supplies for those persons who, in Freeport, who operate under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. And line 4 will account for most of the majority of taxpayers where they will input their VAT inclusive sales. Line 5 will be calculating the tax that is due. We have another item called on line number 6. Line number 6 deals with reverse charges. And if you notice with those persons who are filing VAT for the last year, you notice the screen has changed a little bit. That's because we had an upgrade in our portal. So it looks a little different, it's a little bit more friendly. So if you have questions of what you want to input on a particular line, you can click the help button and it'll tell you exactly what you should be putting there. So there's no disguise or uncertainty of what you need to put on each particular line. The reverse charge was actually put in there to capture precisely what we just talked about foreign person coming providing professional service to the country, or a business hiring a foreign consultant. Same difference. And that is also being monitored not by just DIR, we can share information with immigration as well. The first section of the standard VAT return deals with all of the output supplies or the sales that you have. And the second section deals with all the inputs or the operating inputs. The inputs is separated into 2 categories. We have capital inputs and we have non-capital inputs. The capital inputs generally is when you purchase equipment, that sort of thing. You're quite familiar with that. And we have domestic inputs or operational inputs, which is normally inventory items. Now, with the input section, we also have what we call imports. Imports is separate because under the Customs Act, and not only the Customs Act, but the VAT Act, we do not allow you to claim any import VAT unless it's paid. So if you report import VAT on your return, we will be requesting confirmation to confirm that you actually paid it at Customs. So please don't put import VAT there if you don't have the receipts to support it. We will come back to you, we will reject your application, and we can fine you for it. The other section that we're talking about deals with the purchases, local purchases, which you're all familiar with. And local purchases is really if you go to the store, hardware store, and you purchase supplies. But I must stress to you, when you purchase something from a vendor, please ensure that your TIN is on the invoice, or it will not be accepted, or will not be allowed to be claimable. So make sure that they input your tax identification number on those invoices, and vice versa. When you issue an invoice to someone, make sure your TIN is on those invoices as well. The other last part of the section actually deals with the mixed supplies in terms of we have businesses that offer both, whether it's a taxable supply or an exempt supply. And to share with you, there are no exempt goods according to the VAT Act. None, zero. So please don't, if you provide only goods, that you have something in exempt line, there are none. We have a few exempt services though, which relate to investment or interest from your mortgages, etc. We have life insurances, that's about it. And education, as far as the school's tuition is concerned. The persons who offer both taxable and exempt supplies, they are not allowed to claim all of the operating inputs. So what we have here is what we call mixed supplies, and see line number 21 that talks about the inputs that is not allowable, that is not claimable. The system also has built in an apportionment formula, which is on the form itself. Now, the last section of the VAT return, you will actually see where you have adjustments that you can make an adjustment. And it'll show you the total input VAT for that particular tax return that you've done and the amount of VAT that is due. There are two adjustment lines, one on the output side and one on the input side. And that's there for a particular reason. For instance, if I give you an example for an adjustment on the input, if you sold something to a taxpayer and they returned it to you, what do? You refund it, right? If you refund that purchase that he got from you, and this return came after the tax period, you've already paid the government the VAT. So line number 25 would capture the VAT that you're refunding back to that client of yours. Everybody clear on that? So the other VAT return that we talk about is the flat rate. With the flat rate, this is a lot easier. All you do is you just report your total VAT inclusive sales on line number 1, and the system will automatically take out 6.5% of the VAT inclusive sales. That's all you do. Bear in mind, you must keep all your supporting documentation for your sales. We don't allow you to claim operating inputs because you're only paying the government 6.5%. You're collecting 10%, but you're only paying 6.5%. But we do allow you to claim on capital inputs. Everybody's good with that? Okay, so I just want, that's a quick overview of the VAT for now. And if you have questions, you can give the questions once we complete it at the end. I'll pass it on to my colleague, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing so far with time? Yeah, you're getting a lot of information. I know you're like a sponge. You're absorbing all of it. So I am going to, my name is Steve Davis. I am the condo hotel tax manager, and I am also responsible for short-term vacation rentals. So I am going to tell you a little bit about condo hotel tax, how it came about, and who it applies to, right? So condo hotel tax, what happened July 1st, 2022, the Hotel Act was amended. As a part of that amendment, there's now a condo hotel tax. So let's think about what would you consider a condo hotel? So what comes to mind when I say condo hotel? Let's go back to the picture, John, on the cover. John already gave you the answer. Excuse me. So looking at the picture, on the outside it looks like a hotel, right? So we know all hotels have rooms, right? So the word condo hotel implies what? Condos, right? So that's the difference right there. Hotels have rooms, condo hotels have condominiums. The hotel is the hotel owns all of the rooms that are rented, and the condo hotel, those condos are individually owned, okay? And then they share the amenities, whether that be a gymnasium, a movie theater, what have you. That's condo hotel in a nutshell. So I'm gonna give you the definition that the Department of Inland Revenue uses right there under condo hotel and hotel rental pool. The Department of Inland Revenue considers a condo hotel to be a condo that operates like a hotel, a property with several individuals owning each unit, sharing amenities. That's what a condo hotel is, right? A hotel rental pool means any collective rental arrangement by which properties not owned by a hotel form a part of a hotel rental pool's bedroom inventory. So the hotel rental pool would be like in a subdivision where people build their homes, second homeowners, and then they turn it over to a hotel to include as rental. And those are the two parts of what the condo hotel tax applies to. Condo hotel units and hotel rental pool participants, okay? The rate that applies to for condo hotel tax. So the condo hotel tax is 75%. The last line, the current rate of the residential property rate. It's 75 of the current residential property rate, right, for real property taxes, which is 0.625% of the rate of your property, right? So real property tax, you pay 100%. Condo hotel tax, you pay 75%, right? That's pretty straightforward, okay? Working out the net VAT. So right there in the bowl, you see net VAT. Mr. Miller would have alluded to it in his presentation. What is output VAT and what is input VAT? So output VAT is when you rent the VAT charge on the rental. That's the output side. And then the input side is what you pay for utilities. That's the net VAT. So we send notices out every year in October or December. Notices are sent out. You send out a bill. Notice of assessment is a fancy word for bill. So we send out the bill in October, November. Then you compare, how it works is you compare that bill against the net VAT, what you have been submitting to us throughout the year, right? So you've been paying throughout the year, and we would have sent you a bill, so you deduct what you would have submitted throughout the year from that bill. You would have paid us in advance, and you take that away from that bill, and what the difference is, you submit to us, okay? So that is condo hotel tax in a nutshell. I'm gonna go to the return, which will make it a lot clearer for you. So let's go to the return real quick. Gonna move very fast. Okay, so this is what the condo hotel tax unit owner return looks like. Section A includes all of your information, your name, and the hotel, that pool that you're participating in, your unit number, and the hotel TIN. The declaration period runs from January 1st all the way through December 31st. So it's a calendar year. Then you move down to Section B, which is assessed condo hotel tax, right? The value that is assessed by the Department of Inland Revenue. Again, the estimate is the 75% of the residential real property tax rate, right? And that's how you get the estimate. So that's the bill that we send out. Section B represents the notice of assessment that we send out. And then Section C is what you would have done throughout the year, how much you would have submitted to us, that you would arrive at a net VAT paid already. So the question in Section C is, was the unit rented during the declaration period? If the answer is yes, then of course you would have had to submit some money to us throughout the year, right? And so you would tell us how much you would have submitted and arrive at a net figure. If the answer is no, then there's nothing to complete in that area, and you'll be surprised to know how many people it's no for. And then they just pay the bill that we assess because they would have not provided any money to us throughout the year. So it's the total number of rooms rented, the total revenue earned during the period, and then we all know the VAT rate is 10%, so total VAT charged to guests during the period, 10% of the rental revenue earned. That gives us the output VAT, and then you get to the input VAT apportioned to the unit during the declaration period, which is a calendar year. So you take the output VAT and you minus the input VAT and you arrive at the net VAT paid, right? Then we go to the next section. So this is where you determine the amount of money that you would send to us. You have the estimate, the bill at the top that we would have sent to you. Then you have the net VAT paid, the amount that you would have sent to us, net. And then that gives you the final balance that you have to pay us. You sign your declaration form, print your name, and date it, and you're done. That's condo hotel tax in a nutshell, right? Okay, so now I'm going to transition into the second part, the second topic that I have to talk about, which is short-term vacation rentals, right? So short-term vacation rentals. Next slide, John. No. Next presentation, sorry. Wrong presentation. Okay, so short-term vacation rental, March 1st, 2023, the Department of Inland Revenue, along with the Ministry of Tourism, has been asking all short-term vacation owners to register in the portal to make us aware of who you are, where you are, and that sort of thing. There are some benefits to registering as a short-term vacation rental operator. You become officially recognized by the Bahamian government. Number two, you become eligible for funding, proposed funding, and nobody wants to miss out on proposed funding to help you grow your business, right? Registration is free, by the way. You don't have to pay a fee to register, and we don't assess you. You don't have to worry. We don't assess you real property tax because, as you know, Bahamians are not charged real property tax on the family island. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just registration. We know who you are. And then you get free promotion. The Ministry of Tourism has a huge budget to promote the Bahamas, and so you don't want to miss out on that promotion. Any free advertisement you can get is a plus. So short-term rental, let's move right into short-term rentals, okay? So short-term rentals, a business license is required for the rental of residential properties that are owned by non-Bahamians. Actually, John, go back to the first page. There's a page missing in the presentation. Okay. All right, so who's involved would have been the first page. Something happened there. So a business license is required for the rental of residential properties that are owned by non-Bahamians and Bahamian corporations, right? Those are the two areas that are covered by short-term vacation rental, right? There's a potential for a third, which are Bahamians who meet the threshold of $100,000. So for non-Bahamians, notwithstanding the $100,000 threshold requirement, a non-Bahamian who operates a vacation home rental is required to register for VAT. Okay? All of you in here are Bahamians, so that won't apply to you. However, Bahamian owners only are required to register for VAT if they have met the registration threshold of $100,000 presently, okay? And if your property is in the name of a limited liability company, then you are also required to register for short-term vacation rental. So what has happened? Effective the 1st of March 2023, all property owners operating their properties as short-term vacation rentals will be required to register their properties in the short-term vacation rental portal. I will give you the address at the end of the presentation. Number 2, the operation of a commercial rental establishment, which is key. Commercial rental establishment, that is what a short-term vacation rental is a taxable activity comprising a taxable supply of services, and where the operation satisfies the registration threshold, the owner of such establishment becomes a taxable person required to register as such under the Act. So key right there, commercial rental establishment. So let's talk about what is a commercial rental establishment. Definition, right? Commercial rental establishment has the meaning set out in regulation number 10. Number 1, commercial rental establishment for the purposes of the Act, these regulations and VAT rules, a commercial rental establishment includes the following, okay? So the first one is an accommodation in a hotel, right? The second one, a residential accommodation of any kind which constitutes an asset, including a lease asset of a business undertaking or a separately identifiable part of a business undertaking carried on by any person who leases. So lease is, another word for lease is rent, right? So leases or holds for lease in the course of such business undertaking the accommodation as residential accommodation. Key word right there. Residential accommodation. So anyone who leases or holds for lease in the course of such business undertaking the accommodation as residential accommodation. You live there, right? And part 2, it's up too high. In respect of each occupant regularly or normally leases or holds the lease or holds for lease the accommodation as residential accommodation for a continuous period not exceeding 45 days. That's key right there. So you rent it as a residential accommodation for continuous periods not exceeding 45 days. Key words right there. 45 days, you rent it as a residential accommodation. Part 3, residential accommodation in a condo, timeshare, or house acquired by a non-resident under the International Persons Landholding Act, noted in Chapter 140, where the permit specifies that such accommodation will be used for rental purposes, okay? So when they purchase their home, they know that it's not just going to be a vacation home, they are also going to rent it out when they are off the island, okay? And then the final part, any other accommodation which the minister may by order designate as a commercial rental establishment. So if you look in the Act, you will not find the word short-term vacation rental. What you will find is commercial rental establishment, and that's what it relates to, okay? The following link will take you to the registration portal for short-term vacation rental. So if you have a short-term vacation rental, or if you have a friend that visits the island and they are thinking about building a short-term vacation rental, this is the address where you would go to register for free. So you can take advantage of all that the Bahamas government is offering, right? Free promotions, free funding, free money. You want to take advantage of that. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to take advantage of free money, okay? And that is short-term vacation rental. Thank you for participating, and we are now going to open the floor for questions.
Or non-Bahamian owners.
Well, that's why we're opening this office in Eleuthera. We're strengthening, you would see that we also strengthen the Ministry of Works regulations also. And as the local administrator, as the ex officio, it requires those assessment numbers. We are seeing a lot of non-Bahamians receiving their driver's license and their vehicle inspection, but the property is identified as vacant. So I'm trying to find out, where are all of these foreigners living on these vacant lands? And when we search on to these various platforms, as we did for yesterday, and we did an Expedia search, they came up an average of 365 short-term rentals in South Eleuthera alone. And the number of compliance is very low. And so there is a need for the department to leave notices on these individual homes, advising of their obligations. Unfortunately, the tenant or the person who's renting the home during that period will see that notification. But we will now start to need to affix. And we also need Eleutherians to please come forward. There's a hotline, 225-7280. If you are the person cleaning the place, if you are the person giving the wonderful chef, if you are the person picking up the person from the airport, there has to be some administrator or someone on the island who is administrating the second homeowner's house whilst they're off. There's someone who's paying the basic utility expenses. And we need you to come forward and register that properly, and declare that property accordingly. If you are a property manager, you need to have a business license saying that you are a property manager. And you should not be mingling your funds, your own private banking funds, for those transactions. And so we're trying to place some heavier laws on the commercial entity that has not checked their KYC to see how, if Miss Mary Sue says she only works for Mr. Benaby and is making $2,000, why so far for the year 2024, Mary Sue has passed $2,000 every month? So we're asking first for the Lutherans, those who work for these establishments, to please ensure that boss man comes in and register the property. Registration is free. And many of the transactions happen outside of the jurisdiction, and we need to capture this. Most of the realtors or the property managers are based in South Florida, from what we see for Eleuthera. The funds are paid before they come to the island on credit card, and so there is no funds left with the island. And so as as we want to get the basic necessities done in Eleuthera. We complain about electricity. If there's no funds going to the central account, or if we are okay, help me, Eleuthera, if we are okay with the payments happening abroad and you getting the little drop-ins from picking them up from the airport, let me know and we can stop our work. But if you know, when they come to immigration, they have to show proof that they're living this place for 1 week. That's evidence right there that someone has been cleaning the rooms. Someone has been refreshing this place, cutting the yard. Unless you're telling me that the second homeowner is here every other week once the person check out. But the compliance level, to answer your question, the compliance level is very low in Eleuthera on a whole. And we hope with the satellite locations and the establishment of the office tomorrow that we get better response. You should not feel in fear that you will not have that job. It is just that the company needs to be compliant with government. We cannot go to the United States or London or any part of the world and do the same thing. They will repatriate you and you can't get back into their country. And we have to abide by the rules and regulations of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
I just want to add to that. We have been doing research on this for the last several months, and we have two of the young men who will be our assessors to go into the field, and we will be identifying them, hopefully with the use of drones, because there are a significant amount of properties way in the bush, so to speak. And if you drove into North Eleuthera, you'll see a significant amount of houses 5 miles in. And so the practicality of doing that on a 100-mile long island is quite tedious. But as Mr. Fernandez said, that is the mission, one of the key mission of establishing the office here. We recognize that there are tremendous leakages in our revenue, especially not only in Eleuthera. I see that in Exuma, I see it in Long Island, I see it in Abaco. And so we are now, I mentioned last night that the government is undertaking to pave the road from the south to Hatchet Bay. Millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. Where do we get the money from? And so we have to step up our game in terms of revenue collection and compliance to be able to have the government to have the provision or some headroom to kind of wiggle in some of these capital development. Otherwise, we'll be pretty much like national insurance. What we take in, we get out. And you know, if your own budget, if you make $1,000 and you're spending 1,001, you're in trouble. And so there's a need for long-term strategic planning in government's revenue and how it allocates to the various islands. And so we are doing, we are giving significant attention to this particular area, short-term rental. And we pretty much have the data. And so it's just a matter of completing the training and the execution, which should be, taking off within the next few weeks.
Pleasant good evening. I don't have a question but I just want to commend you. This is long overdue. Like I said, I'm from Eleuthera. I worked in the hotel for many years before coming over to government. And this has been a cry for so long that when we had to do the paperwork, Bahamians have to fill out all of this tax and pay whatever we have to do, but the foreigners were getting away with everything. So I've been gone from here only 2 years. I just came back 2 weeks ago, and when I saw this, I was so happy to hear that this office is opened here, and that y'all are going to do due diligence to the foreigners, and we're going to get exactly what needs to be paid to our country. Thank you again so much.
And we're also trying to safeguard the industry, the tourism product. If you would have noticed, there was an issue with short-term rental in Trinidad that damaged. There was a tourist that was raped in a rural area in Trinidad. And so we need to have accounting of who are the owners of these properties and the security and the ratings that the person's house will get. Not in Eleuthera, but a person visiting another island, the minute they reached at the airport, receive a cancellation for their booking. So you could imagine coming to the Bahamas, not knowing the Bahamas, and the minute you reached on the island, getting a cancellation notice that you're not welcome at that person's house. We think it was a race card, but the person did not want that person there. But the person came to our office asking for help. Who they to sue? Well, we don't know who you rent from. Did you get a tax identification number? Do you know who the owner is? Like I said, it's a person in Miami, a realtor in Miami that you've booked from. Your credit card was processed outside of the country. Well, we can't help you because that isn't registered. Do you know who was supposed to pick you up from from the airport of that island? They have no details. And so we have to then turn to Ministry of Tourism to wow this person, to put them up and give them above and beyond experience whilst they're on the island to make a bad position a good position. We don't want to be in that position. And then false advertising. If this is what is offered in your place, do not put fake pictures on the internet. Because when the person comes, if there's a naturalist and they want to be away from all these electronics, they don't expect to have an electronic key entrance. Because they want to experience, they want to be a naturalist and come and sit down and push a key in and don't have no TV. They want to lock themselves away. So we want people to be truthful, as you see with the information is asked by the Ministry of Tourism of what's on your property. What will the tourist experience be like? Let's forget about tourists. What an Nasuvian would experience coming to living your place in Eleuthera. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, if there isn't any more questions, okay.
I just want to make a comment for the reality of what we have in Eleuthera. There are a significant amount of foreigners owning property, and they're going for thousands of dollars a night. There's a $10 million property going in the Harbor Island now, and it's booked before it's completed at $30,000, $40,000 a night. In some cases, $30,000, $40,000 a week, depends on how big the property. So in North Eleuthera, you see people coming in on the jets, and they are bringing in 15 to 20 persons to live in this complex for a week, and they're paying $100,000, $200,000, and they have a Bahamian, and of course a chef and a gardener and the rest of it, and the places are filled all year through. And so what are we getting in the Bahamas? What are the returns? And so there are significant gaps in that particular area. And so we're not making up this story. This is the reality. In my short time we are seeing here already. And I was looking for a property when I came here 6 months ago to rent. And the property was constructed 4 years ago. I figured it's not fantastic. It's about $400,000. And the property, when I came here, was being up for sale for $1.8 million. And I wanted to rent it. And so the people laughed at me. And so I went to the real estate company, and the lady was quite honest with me. She said, "Mr. Bentley, you want to pay $4,000 or $5,000 a month for this, but here's the income, $300,000 to $400,000 a year, Airbnb." That was so, it's a no-brainer. So we're not going to rent you a property for $4,000 a month, $48,000, and we can make $400,000, $350,000 to $400,000. And so that's the reality. That was a rude awakening for me. And so there's a significant gap, especially for Eleutherans, and your ability to be able to even make an income in that area. The properties have appreciated significantly because of the intrusion of the foreign investment, And so it makes it a little difficult for you to get into that market. And I've had some discussion with the Ministry of Finance in terms of how, government can help Bahamians as well get into that market, I think, in terms of land allocations and some other things, because, it's pretty much dominated by, the market is dominated by the foreign investment. Now it's a whole philosophical discussion there, and Mr. Fernandez could tell me to pull back or whatever, but it's an important point for us, especially in the key islands where we see these significant gaps. And so I encourage Eleutherians to invest in their land as well as much as possible, where there are, I would say, crown land, to make application to try and get in that business, because they're, Crown land don't? Oh, they don't answer you. Okay, we have a new administrator here now, so she gonna revolutionize things, and you ain't got none yet. Well, that's off the record, but they're the commonage, right? There are some persons who can get into the commonage, if by virtue of I know in Exuma, I was speaking to one of the ex-governors of the central bank, and they were able, because of the relationship in the rural clan, they were able to get an acre of land like that in the commonage, and I think it's a similar thing in Eleuthera as well. No, and so not similar. Okay, so you got trouble to get commonage pieces as well. So well, that's something you have to fight to the government to open up the commonage thing and using some criteria. That's another discussion, because, as I mentioned last night as well, the government is moving to this land reform. So, there's going to be, at some point, I believe next year, when that's all completed, for all property owners to register their property. The bill is in Parliament now, I think, or the bill is in Parliament now in terms of land registration. And so we believe once that happens, and that's needed, because there are a significant amount of double dipping, so to speak, where 2 persons or 3 persons own the same land. As a banker, I can tell you that a number of the banks have problems with disposing of their assets because the ownership of the land, they've leveraged the loan with the property, and now when they want to dispose of it, they can't, because the land is not clear, and so they can't sell it, and so the banks are stuck with a book of loans that they can't get rid of, because the disposition with respect to the land is uncertain. And so therefore banks have kind of restricted their allocation of research to certain amount, only a couple of legal firms, because of that, and therefore we have this situation in land registration and ownership that is very significant in our country. So I said all of that just to say that this is a real concern, and the leadership of the DIR and indeed the government recognize the need to make a move in the Family Islands so that we can help with the revenue enhancement measures in these areas of STRs, etc.
And I also want to give you this email. It's also in the back there, and a Hotmail number, 225-7280. And at any point you want to disclose any information to us. I'm still trying to find these Bahamian private chefs that are offering services to the short-term rental. I am still trying to allocate these cleaning service companies that are offering service, these maintenance companies that are offering the cleaning and mowing of lawn of these second home owners that have placed their things on these short-term rentals. So you can call us at 225-7280. You don't have to leave any further information, just the name and the number. Or you can email, it's short-term-rentals with an S, short-term-rentals@bahamas.gov.bs. We have to secure our own secure the information, and if we can get the message out that these properties need to be registered. If you're doing service in the Bahamas, if you're offering a service within the Bahamas, you need to have a business license for the activity that you're in. There got to be someone leaving the car at the airport and allowing the person to go straight to the short-term rental. So there has to be Eleutherans that know the information. So you can just call us anonymously at 225-7280 or that email and just leave us some information, and we will carry the details as necessary from there. All right? Well, thank you so much. I think we've left a lot of nuggets. There are a lot of information, and no Bahamian function is without refreshments. So we have light refreshments in the back afterwards that we are asking that you take one and just leave carry some of the information. I'll leave it back to the opening of the office is tomorrow, and then we have two satellite locations. We're working on staffing so that we can meet the needs, that you don't have to call Nassau. You can reach out to, I was expecting a person who always calls on behalf of the people of New Providence, of Eleuthera. I think she would be a wonderful staff member, but she's a reverend here, so I don't think her other job would allow her to do. But anytime she needs assistance for anyone on this island, her mouth is strong enough that she gets it done for the people of Eleuthera. So we're thankful for what she does.
Thank you very much. We have refreshments at the back there. Please also, you can take any other questions, any other concerns? And but you'll see the brochures on the table there that gives you instructions on how to, if you want to get a business license, to go online to register the name of the company and pay a fee of $25. You get that reserve, and then you provide the other information there, and how to register on the real property tax or the short-term rentals. All the brochures are there. And if you have any questions, you can contact us at the office. Our number there for the moment is 4709-299. That's the hotline. And if you have any questions there, we'll be pleased to help you. So you can contact us there. I'm glad to see the reporter from the Lutheran. Is here, Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. We hope we see you tomorrow so you can give us wide coverage. Otherwise, you wouldn't get paid. That's my friend Elizabeth. She is from the Lutheran. We connected. We had an article in there already, Mr. Fernando, on short-term rentals. And so we will be putting more ad there so that we can keep people informed on the Facebook as well as we continue to grow and develop. So let's give our panelists a hand for appreciation coming from all the way from Nassau, led by our deputy, and I believe that you benefited from this tonight. And we will continue to do town meetings from time to time. Our next stop really is in the north, and south, in Spanish Wells, and then Harbor Island, because they didn't feel like they could come all the way up here. So we got to go where the people are. And so thank you very much. But please take 2 or 3 boxes, and if you have some children, we have quite a bit there and some drinks. And next time you come, we'll have a big meal for you. All right? No? Yeah.